conflict in Israel and Gaza has not only resulted in humanitarian drives and shows of support here in the UK, but has also sparked a wave of anti-Semitic offences, with officers recording a spike, check this, of more than 1,300%.
Well, last night, Met Police officers arrested 3 men on suspicion of inciting racial hatred, following reports of an incident in Twickenham. It comes after Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley called for a change in the laws for tackling extremism. Well, joining us now is Lord Eric Pickles, United Kingdom Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues. Eric, do you think the Met Police have done enough to tackle the comments that we've seen at marches and protests over the past week?
The Met Police have lost the plot. I'm just amazed at their inaction. And I think, getting a specialist to be able to read flags and a specialist that tells us that jihad is not jihad as we commonly understand it, but it could mean a hot cup of tea, just is utterly ridiculous.
Eric, we're struggling to hear you, my friend. You're going to need to speak up. You're welcome to talk today, though, sir. Thank you for joining us. I just want to take this point, right? We were talking about chanting jihad on the streets of Great Britain yesterday. We were talking about the flags. Some people will absolutely, in fact, I would put myself in that. We all have a right in a democracy to say this is unacceptable. But certainly with the atrocities that have happened with Hamas, jihad, which can mean holy war, absolutely. I want to ask you about the police specifically. Every single government minister has said it's appalling. Front of the Times today, Sunak chanting jihad is a threat to our democracy. Now, the police are saying, and this is what I want from you, Eric, the police are saying the statute book ain't full enough. The statute book doesn't give us the right. The politicians are saying this is the soft-bellied police who are too busy taking the knee and doing the Macarena. They need to get tougher. Where do you stand on that, Eric? What's the truth?
I think I probably stand on the latter. I think the idea that for the police trying to interpret what jihad means, they need to think in terms of the effect that has on the crowd. And my worry is that the police are, in a way, giving almost a permissive license for future violence. And my worry is that some rather impressionable young chap or young woman will see the jihad, we can say jihad is a kind of a wink and a nod to us, and things can escalate.
Eric, can I just ask you on that then? Would you say the same thing to commentators who've been calling for Gaza to be flattened over the past couple of weeks as a response? You'd say that you'd apply the same logic to that as well?
Do I utterly reject this moral equalisation? I mean, I don't know whether the reporters from talkTV went to the screening yesterday of body cams that showed the actual nature of the atrocities of women's heads being decapitated, of children being ripped out of the womb and decapitated.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos.
There's no moral equivalent here.
I'm not trying to say there is removed. I'm not trying to say there's moral.
Well, okay, you sounded very reasonable. So let me finish my bit. You've got to understand that Hamas has to be dismantled both politically and militarily. And the Israelis have gone out of their way to try and ensure that civilians are not hit. Hamas is using the civilians as a shield.
Eric, that's the point, isn't it, my friend? Eric, that's the point, isn't it? Here's the issue. I don't think anybody, including Nick, with a brain cell in their head, cannot look at those genocidal things that happened 3 weeks ago and not think that the Israeli people who lost, yes, 1,400 innocent people and all those atrocities you talked about do not have a right to go and either get their hostages back or exact some sort of ending to a terrorist organisation that has been going on for far too long. However, Eric, you're a decent man. We all, whatever side of the fence we sit on, look at what is happening in Gaza and go, geez, this is going to be a humanitarian disaster. But you're right. It's very easy for people to say, if Israel flattens Gaza, there will be millions of people who are displaced and hundreds who lose their lives. Yes, and nobody wants that. And that's presumably why they're trying to get these people out. But what we must also remember is Hamas builds their centres and their political centres and their operational centres under hospitals. They have all those tunnels. It's a virtually impossible job. I would love to sit here and say to you, Eric Pickles, they're going to sit down, they're going to discuss it. They're not, are they? The fact of the matter is, what happened was appalling, but what's coming is not edifying at all, is it?
I think we remember that in July of this year, there was a substantial uprising against Hamas in Gaza because they've robbed the population, they've stolen the aid, and that was ruthlessly put down. They put up roadblocks to prevent people going to the south away from the action. They're so incompetent that they fire rockets that fall short.
So why doesn't somebody have the intelligence?
A third of all the rockets that are fired fall on Gaza.
Why doesn't somebody, Eric Pickles, have the intelligence to say then, it's just come to me after 3 weeks, that Israel, by getting rid of this terrorist cell, will presumably be freeing the Palestinian people to have a leadership or a government that treats them in a fairer and more democratic way? Why, for all the propaganda we hear and read, do we not hear that?
Well, I think because we are suckers, that Israel has to prove everything to the nth degree, but all it takes is for a Hamas spokesman to say something, then they're suddenly described as the health minister. Hamas hasn't had elections. Hamas isn't elected. Hamas is oppressing its people. Hamas is stealing. It's either going into armaments or it's going into their back pockets so they can live in a very nicely, thank you. It's Hamas that are wanting to maximize the civilian casualty. It's certainly not Israel. Israel has every right to defend itself. And if there's a ceasefire now, all it's going to happen is that there'll be a temporary stop, and then those raids across the border will start again.
Eric, just bringing it back to issues in the UK now, as we said in that intro, anti-Semitic hate crimes up in London over 1,300%. We heard earlier about Maureen Lipman, the actress, being offered security, other high-profile Jewish people being offered similar. What do we need to do here in the UK to help protect Jewish communities at a time like this?
Well, I think we need the police to take anti-Semitic activities seriously, and that means they need to be able to identify anti-Semitism. I mean, there's plenty of training there. We were one of the first people to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and it gives some pretty clear examples, comparing Israel to the Nazis, saying that Israel's an apartheid state when 21% of the population's Arab and have full voting rights and are in the military, suggesting that Jews in this country are responsible for the actions of the Israeli government. Treating Israel different from any other country. All these things are anti-Semitic. I mean, if you look at the UN, the majority of the resolutions on human rights condemn Israel, and Iran and North Korea barely get a mention.
Eric, wouldn't it be fair to say...
We have a compliant liberal toast.
Would it not be fair to say, and I have many Jewish friends, that when you read about, 3 arrests in Twickenham, when you hear the figure Nick gave, 1,300% increase, anti-Semitism has been going on for far, far, far too long. It's not just recently and in the last 3 weeks. That has undoubtedly intensified. And whatever side of the political spectrum you sit upon, that is fundamentally wrong. And whether it's soft-bellied police who don't want to make that decision for fear of reprisal, whether it's government who need to fill in the statute book, do we not owe the Jewish population and the Jewish people across the world our confidence and our backing to do something to stop people being scared in 2023 from walking down the street? I think it's appalling.
I mean, people should be able to outwardly wear symbols of their faith. I think it's important for us to understand that the Jewish identity is a fundamental part of the British identity, and if our fellow citizens are frightened to celebrate their own Jewishness, then there is something deeply wrong in society. And I know that the police have increased patrols within predominantly Jewish areas, and I welcome that. But what I would also welcome is 1 or 2 people getting their collar felt. Because if that doesn't happen, then there is a risk that things are going to get even more sticky. There is a risk that people will find themselves drifting into violence. And we need to stop this festival of hate every Saturday where Jews are unable to go in their own, in the capital or in large cities in the United Kingdom.
Lord Eric Pickles, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, what do you mean by festival of hate? Correct. Forgive my
I mean,
ignorance.
exactly. I thought the two marches were both a festival of hate. They were a celebration of the decapitation of children and the burning alive of pensioners.
I don't think, Eric, I really respect your opinion, but I don't think you can possibly say that the 100,000 people who were marching were there celebrating the decapitation of babies.
It doesn't work, does it?
And my point is this. That there were people on that march calling for more deaths among Jews, and not just in Israel and in the United Kingdom.
Lord Eric Pickles, I appreciate your time, my friend. I appreciate your time. I really do. That's the essence of debate. People have different opinions. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today.